Welcome to the House of Lore. Here, in these quiet moments before sleep, we open gentle doors to stories woven across time, science, and whispered memory. Tonight, we begin a new journey, one that touches us all, though we rarely think about it. This episode is called A Quiet Beginning, and it's about something very curious and very human. It is the mystery of why we cannot remember being born. Before we begin, if you enjoy your time with us here, you're warmly invited to like, subscribe, and share the House of Lore, so that others too can find their way through its restful halls. Now, let us go inward, where the story begins, not with a bang, but with a breath. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and rest safely in the knowledge that you are already exactly where you need to be. There is something gently poetic about the fact that none of us can recall our first moments in this world. The light or the sound, or maybe the warmth of another body, welcoming our own. The memory of our birth and of our earliest days is hidden somewhere deep, like a book sealed in a library without a key. And yet, we all made that very same passage. Each of us lived through those quiet beginnings, looking back through the lens of science, curiosity, and quiet wonder. We find a term for this blank space in our minds: infantile amnesia. A universal experience, as consistent in its silence as sleep itself. It's the reason why, try as we might, we cannot recall our very first laugh, our earliest sight, or how the world looked the first time we opened our eyes. But what is infantile amnesia, really? And why does it press a veil over our earliest moments? To begin, we must sit quietly with the idea that memory, like the rest of our minds, has a journey of its own. Memories are not simply collected like seashells on a beach. They are built, layered, shaped by time, attention, and the mysterious chemistry of the brain. And in the earliest days of life, the parts of the brain that help form long-term memories, especially areas like the hippocampus, are still under quiet construction, like walls not yet raised, rooms unpainted. The neural architecture to store and recall complex memories simply isn't ready. And so, while experiences happen, the comfort of a parent's arms, the rhythm of a lullaby, the taste of the first raindrop, these moments pass through us, like gentle breezes across water, leaving only the softest of ripples behind. Later in life, beginning around the age of 3 or 4, the tendrils of memory reach deeper, and the world starts to leave a more lasting mark. But by then, the earliest pages have already faded, and we are left with a story begun in the middle. Infantile amnesia is not a flaw, it is a design, part of the quiet unfolding of who we are. And though we cannot remember being born, something deep within us knows that we were loved, warmed, held, and introduced to a world filled with light and mystery, and that is where our story begins. From the very first moments of life, the brain begins its extraordinary work. Unlike many organs that are mostly formed and prepared for their role at birth, the brain is born unfinished, a masterpiece still painted in soft, sweeping layers. This unfinished state is not a weakness, but a strength. It allows the young brain to adapt, to sense, and to grow in response to the world unfolding around it. Scientists call this quality neuroplasticity. It is the brain's way of shaping itself through experience. Neuroplasticity is most powerful in early life through infancy and childhood, when every light, sound, and movement is something new, each sensation a message, each movement a signal. These signals form connections between neurons, just like trails in a gentle forest. The more they are walked, the stronger they become. In the early months, the brain creates more connections than it will ever need. This abundance gives the brain freedom to explore many ways of understanding the world. It's like a village of whispering paths, waiting to see which ones will hold the footsteps of learning. Later, those that go unused begin to fade naturally. This is called synaptic pruning, a quiet tidying of the mind. Rather than a loss, it is a beautiful act of refinement. The brain lets go of what it doesn't need, so it can focus more clearly on what it does. This is why early experiences, especially those involving sight, sound, touch, movement, are so important. They give the brain direction, showing it where to grow and where to illuminate. When a baby grasps a soft blanket or turns toward a soothing voice, they are not just learning the world. They are shaping the very structure of their mind. The plasticity of the brain is a quiet miracle. It allows for learning that is deep, layered, and lasting. And it shows us that growth begins not with knowledge, but with the simple act of attention, looking, listening, reaching, responding. These gentle rhythms of early life light the path for everything that comes after. As we rest tonight, think upon the vast intelligence of nature, the way it tunes each child's experience into a symphony of connections. The young brain, in all its wonder, does not rush. It listens first, then, one by one, it learns. When we think of the present moment, we often imagine it as a fleeting second, a slender thread between past and future. Yet, for an infant, the present is not a passing place. It's the only place they know. An infant's world is not cluttered with regrets of yesterday, nor filled with plans for tomorrow. Their awareness rests entirely in what is happening now. This timelessness is not something they are taught. It is the natural state of a new and growing mind, one not yet anchored within the rhythm of clocks, calendars, or obligations. Their eyes follow a fluttering curtain. Their fingers reach for the soft tug of a blanket's edge. Their ears tune in to the murmur of a gentle voice. Each sensation is fully felt, fully explored, as if it is the only one that matters. And to them, it is. The infant does not divide the world into timelines. The concept of before and after has no real meaning yet. It is always just now. This deep, present-centered awareness shapes how time is experienced in early life. Time for a baby is not a stream they float along. It is more like a still pond, rippling gently with each touch, sound, and gaze, but never rushing forward. In this stillness, the building blocks of memory begin to form. But not memories in the way we think of them. Not stories or sequences. Rather, these are moments impressed upon the senses. Familiar textures, soothing voices, calming rhythms. These impressions sit softly in the early mind, like footprints in new snow. Gentle, scattered, and without clear direction. For true memory, what we might call episodic memory. To take shape, something else is needed. A narrative. A child must learn to link this with then. To say first and then next. To build stories from experience. But an infant, living deeply in the present, lacks this thread of continuity. Their world is less a novel, and more a series of vivid photographs. linked loosely by feelings. That's why early recollections tend to fade. Not because they didn't matter, but because the scaffolding of narrative had not yet been built. Yet in its place, there is presence. Pure, simple, attentive presence. An awareness unclouded by what comes before or after. And perhaps, in this quiet observation of babies being purely here, we are reminded of something we once knew, that the moment, this moment, is enough. We are born into a world of sensation, but not of story. Before stories there is quiet. Before memory there is presence. A soft and formless experience where words do not yet reach. Autobiographical memory, the tapestry of your own life, woven from thoughts, places, and times, is not in place at the moment of your first breath. Unlike procedural memory, which helps us learn to eat or walk, or semantic memory, where facts are stored, autobiographical memory is shaped by something deeper. A sense of self. A way to say, I was there. But the newborn has no self in that way, not yet. There are 3 quiet threads to autobiographical memory. The first is episodic memory, the recollection of events rooted in personal experience. The second is semantic self-knowledge, what we believe about ourselves, like where we come from or what we enjoy. And the third is the sense of continuity, the quiet, internal idea that the person you were yesterday is the same as the person you are today. None of these threads are present at birth. They emerge with time, like stars appear as night deepens. The moment of birth lacks a framework, an outline onto which the mind can craft a narrative. There are sights and sounds, heat and cold, but no order, no beginning, no middle, no end. To record a memory, the mind needs context, something to index. Birth is overwhelming, but it is not organized. Think of memory like a library. Each book needs a place on the shelf. A title, a date, perhaps a cover. But the earliest moments of life arrive without bindings. They slip past the catalogue. They cannot be checked out. And so, we grow with this blankness at the start. A silence we all share. Some say they remember their birth. Others recall being cradled in the warm arms of a mother. Perhaps these are wishes we have, borrowed from stories told to us. Not recollections, but reflections. The structure needed for autobiographical memory, brain maturity, language, modeling of time comes slowly like sunlight climbing the walls of a quiet house. Only then can we place ourselves in space and time. Only then are our stories our own. The story of how we begin is one we cannot tell for ourselves, because the mind's canvas in those first moments has yet to be stretched. And memory so gentle, so precise, needs something firm on which to rest. In the earliest moments of our lives, we encounter a passage unlike any other, a crossing from one world to another, from the warm embrace of the womb, into the open air and unfolding light. But curiously, we remember none of it. There are no clear visions, no solid words, and no guiding narrative in the mind that recalls our first breath. Only the gentle mystery remains, a silence older than speech, and a story dreamed without words. Birth is not easily remembered, because it is beyond the usual shape of memory. It is a time of immense transition, a rush of sound, movement, sensation, so intense, so immediate, that the part of the mind that stores narrative stands still, overwhelmed, unready, unformed, and so we pass through, without keeping hold of it, not because the moment isn't meaningful, but because it is too full, far too full to gather into words, like watching lightning strike from under the ocean, or dreaming before dreams have form. Scientists and thinkers have offered many theories. Some say the intensity blurs the signal of experience, making the moment feel more like sensation than story. Others believe the brain is still too young, its cells not yet speaking clearly to one another. Emotions rise before memory knows how to hold them, and perhaps that's what makes the journey timeless. The crying, the sudden cold, the explosive swirl of light and air, all of it happening so quickly that we lose our grip before we've ever truly held on. But even in the swirl of birth's chaos, there is something constant, something silent and still. The hands that catch us, the voices that greet us, the warmth that wraps us. These are the beginning threads of calm. The first soft tones of the lullaby life sings as we arrive. So even though we don't remember our birth, the echoes of care, of welcome, of quiet presence remain. They are built into us in ways that do not require images. They live in the hush between breaths, in the way our bodies rest beneath blankets, in the rhythm of a quiet heartbeat in the still of night. And so we can be comforted in knowing that even if we do not remember the moment we were born, the world was there, open and waiting. We entered not into silence but into care, whether through loving arms or soothing sounds. We were received, held in the chaos, and gently carried into calm. Long before language, before memory as we know it, the body carries a kind of wisdom, a quiet whisper in every cell, a gentle echo of where we began, in silent rhythms, in instinctual motion. There may remain a trace of that first journey, the passage through birth. There are those who believe the body stores experience, not just through conscious recollection, but through a subtler kind of memory. This concept, often called cellular or somatic memory, suggests that life's earliest moments, perhaps even those surrounding birth, may leave their mark not in the mind, but in muscle, tissue, and reflex. A newborn's instinctual cry, a grasping hand, the rooting reflex that helps seek nourishment. These actions have a pattern, familiar and ancient. They're performed without tutoring, without practice. Could they be more than simple reflex? Could they be echoes of the womb and the moment of arrival into the world? Watch a baby turn towards a touch on the cheek, or step with tiny feet when held upright on a firm surface. These movements, known as primitive reflexes, are brief visitors during infancy, often fading mere months after birth, yet their presence, precise and universal, seems to whisper of wisdom older than personal experience. They are, perhaps, reminders of our first encounters with gravity, with light, with breath. Some researchers and therapists have suggested that the memory of birth imprinted in the nervous system might surface again when people undergo deep body work or guided meditation. Spontaneous sensations, flashes of imagery, and emotions unanchored from clear memory may appear. Not everyone agrees on the evidence, but the idea persists that a trace of our beginning might be felt rather than told. Think of it this way. A musician doesn't remember each time they learned a key, and yet their fingers know just where to go. In the same sense, perhaps our bodies remember the very first symphony of heartbeat and breath, The posture we take when startled, the need to be held, the comfort of a mother's scent may all carry primordial reminders, as though the body, in its own quiet language, is still telling the story of our birth. In this house of lore, we do not rush to conclusions. Rather, we pause and notice how even the smallest gesture may be steeped in origins no longer visible, the sway of instinct, the reflexive curl of fingers, or the calming hush of breath. They may be more than patterns. They may be memories, spoken by the body when the mind has forgotten. And as we rest here tonight, listening to the gentle rhythms of thought and stillness, we might remember that some stories live not in words, but in the silence between heartbeats. Long before our first words, before our first breath of cold morning air, there was a moment shared by all who have ever lived. A beginning. Though the details vary, some born under stars, others beneath the hum of fluorescent lights. The origin of life is a thread that connects us. Every person, every voice we've ever heard began in the same quiet mystery. From the stillness of the womb to the sudden brightness of a new world. Birth is not just biology. It is wonder. A threshold. A door opened not with memory but with instinct and breath. It's humbling to think, no matter who we are, no matter what we become, each of us stepped into this world utterly blank, carried in arms we didn't yet know. Eyes wide, though untrained, we do not remember it. Not clearly, not consciously. That first cry, a thin echo in time. That first light already forgotten before it was fully seen. This is the shared amnesia of birth. A beginning so profound the mind tucks it away in silence, and yet it shapes us, each heartbeat in the womb, each gentle sway, each muffled tone from the world outside, forms the first language we never speak. These unremembered moments become the fabric of who we are, a scaffold of experience beneath all we have built, in every language, in every land. The beginning is the same. A child drawn from the unknown into knowing, a breath drawn where once there was none. Birth is the first step on a long and flickering road, a road made brighter by the knowledge that we all began the same way. Fragile, unknowing, carried. Beneath all our stories, all our differences, is that one shared moment when the door opened, when the world whispered, "Welcome." Maybe there is something curious, something gentle and wise, in the way we begin life without memory. We all take our first breath, make our first cry, but none of us can recall it. Not truly. The moment of our arrival is tucked far away, behind a soft curtain. And perhaps that forgetfulness is a gift, a forgotten treasure. The journey into the world is a profound one. Warmth gives way to light. Stillness becomes sound. The womb-safe, silent and known transforms into a wide space, full of sensation and surprise. For a mind just beginning, that first moment would be overwhelming. So much to see, to hear, to feel. Emotions newly born alongside the body, and the mind, still in its softness, shields itself from memory, protecting its delicate wiring from being burdened too early. This forgetting does not mean something lost. It means something preserved. In the quiet days after birth, a baby learns to recognize warmth, to sense the difference between night and day, to understand a familiar voice. These first impressions build slowly, gently. The mind, unburdened by too much too soon, is free to grow. Memory needs structure, And in the early days, that structure has not yet taken shape. The brain, in its careful wisdom, chooses peace over permanence. So the harsh brightness, the early cries, the foreignness of breath, they fade into mist, leaving behind only the quiet beginnings of knowing, just as a seed does not remember the first drop of rain, but grows because of it. We too are shaped by what we do not recall. There is wisdom in this forgetting, a silence that holds us gently. We are not meant to carry those earliest moments. We are meant to unfold, day by day, with only enough memory to hold what we need. And what peace there is in not remembering just how far we've already come. After the hush of birth, there is only breath, a soft inhale, a quiet sigh. And beyond that, invisible yet ever-present is silence, an embrace that holds us before sound belongs to meaning, before words carve shapes into the air. This moment, fragile and wide, is where the story of life truly begins, not with the flash of memory, nor the fingerprints of event, but with a hush, a lull, a warmth, a presence. So gentle it remains outside the mind's reach when later we recall our earliest days. In the first weeks, we do not remember. We simply live, floating in a world built of touch and rhythm. The beat of a mother's heart, the sway of arms cradling us through soft-lit mornings. Somewhere in that rhythm, time begins its quiet stretch. Days unfold into one another. Night whispers into day. We do not yet know the names of things, but we know warmth. We know when the air changes from comfort to chill. We know scent soft traces that reach us, familiar as a lullaby we haven't learned to sing. And so before memory comes recognition, not of events, but of patterns, gentle constellations forming slowly around us, faces, voices, the hush of a room just before sleep. It is here that our story gathers its quiet roots. The mind does not record these early days in chapters. There are no paragraphs, no proper nouns. But the soul, or something close to it, wakes up anyway. This is how life begins. In a kind of blooming that cannot be timed. Eventually memory stirs. Perhaps it is a sound, the scrape of a wooden toy on a smooth floor, or the flicker of light on a wall, dancing in step with a breeze outside. We do not know why that moment stays, while others dissolve into the hush. But that is the quiet art of becoming. Our minds build rooms without blueprints, and into these rooms drift moments, uninvited, delicate, sometimes incomplete, but treasured. These first true memories may arrive like shadows, a blanket that seemed enormous, the echo of laughter nearby, the softness of a hand, or the way the world looked from behind lowered lashes just before sleep. They remind us that life does not start with memories, but memories begin with life. And that is the most quietly beautiful thing of all. We often seek answers where the quiet holds none. We trace invisible threads, waiting for them to weave meaning. But not all patterns complete. Not all questions echo back. And somehow, that is its own kind of peace. In this moment, in this stillness, realize how rarely we sit with not knowing. It can feel strange at first, like standing at the edge of a vast clouded field. But soon, you notice the beauty in soft outlines, the way shadows curve, somewhere gentle. The human story, your story, doesn't unfold all at once. It unfurls slowly, like petals in moonlight. Sometimes it waits, for no clear reason. Other times, it drifts into place with effortless rhythm. We are not made to see every step from the beginning. We are meant to feel our way forward, guided by patience, intuition, moments of quiet knowing. It's all right to pause at the edge of understanding, to rest there, to breathe, because meaning grows slowly, and mystery can hold us too. Even the stars, so bright, so sure, burn behind light years of uncertainty. We watch them from beneath heavy blankets, not needing to know precisely why they flicker, only that they do. This comfort in the unspoken, in the unopened. There is grace in what slips beyond our reach. Closure does not always mean answers. Sometimes it's a quiet acceptance, not a full stop, but a gently trailing dot, a soft breath, before the next step begins. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are simply held in the arms of what has yet to arrive. And in that holding, there is serenity, a still place where your heart remembers how to rest. So, let the curtain stay drawn tonight, just slightly. Let the questions remain soft around the edges, and truly know that you are cradled in the unknown, wrapped gently within it, like dusk before dreams, like a whisper before sleep. All is calm here. All is calm, and you are home. As we drift together into stillness, let's gently wander through one of memory's quiet mysteries. The fog of forgetting, soft and subtle, begins at the very start of our lives. This gentle phenomenon is known as infantile amnesia, a natural veil that hides the earliest pages of our story. Most of us have little to no conscious recollection of our first years, especially before the age of 3 or 4. Though we lived them, though we felt the warmth of loving arms or the sound of a lullaby sung in the dark, our minds quietly chose not to keep those moments where we could later find them. This might seem strange. How can what was once so vivid simply vanish? But it's not a flaw, nor a sign of forgetting in the way we usually mean it. It is the brain gently turning down the lights, making space for growth, language, and new kinds of thought. In early life, the brain is a busy garden growing fast, forming pathways, connecting thoughts. Before memory as we know it can bloom, the ground must be prepared. The systems we use to store and preserve our experiences, such as the hippocampus, are still developing. Like seeds beneath the soil, those systems lie quiet and gathering strength until they're ready to hold the weight of self-awareness. This is why what we remember of our early days may not be full stories as adults know them, but glimpses, gentle shadows, a sound, a color, a feeling. And often those are woven more from shared pictures and family words than from memory itself. But there is no cause to worry, no reason for concern. Infantile amnesia happens to all of us, quietly and calmly, a natural part of the mind's unfolding. It clears away the clutter of impressions before we knew how to arrange them, letting us build the structure of memory piece by piece, like laying bricks for a house we will live in for the rest of our lives. And perhaps it is a mercy too. The world in early childhood is busy, bright, strange, and sometimes overwhelming. Our forgetting is not a failure, but a kindness, a cocoon wrapped around our early senses, as we grow strong enough to make sense of the world around us. So if you find yourself searching for those lost fragments, the crib, the lullaby, the soft hands that lifted you, you are not alone. All of us carry early roots hidden deep in the soil, nourishing who we are, even though we cannot always see them. Let this bring comfort, not curiosity's worry. For the past is not lost. It has simply taken a different shape, dwelling now in how we love, how we fear, and how we dream. Memory, the quiet librarian of the mind, sorts and stores the moments we live. Whether it's the warmth of a childhood home, the melody of a familiar song, or a lesson learned in passing, all are gently tucked away in the mysterious corners of the brain. At its heart, memory begins with a process called encoding. This is when the brain first takes in information. Like a careful observer, it notices patterns, sounds, sights, and sensations. During encoding, neurons spark softly, forming the early outline of a memory. These outlines are not yet permanent, but they begin to settle with each flicker of awareness. As the information gently settles, it moves into storage. The brain doesn't hold memories in a single place. Instead, they are distributed, stitched across many regions. The hippocampus, a curved structure deep within the brain, plays a central part in organizing and storing these new imprints. It is as if the hippocampus places each new memory along a vast internal bookshelf, sorted and tucked away, waiting to be called upon. And then, when needed, comes retrieval. This is when we reach back and find those memories. A familiar scent may summon an old afternoon. A word heard softly might bring back a name. Retrieval gently unlocks stored information, allowing us to recall again and again, shaped by the way it was stored and the frame of mind we are in. But the full orchestra of memory depends on the brain's own development. In early childhood, many of the brain circuits are still forming. Connections between regions strengthen with time, and the materials of memory become more resilient. This is why very young children often do not recall their earliest years. The architecture was still being constructed. As we grow, the myelin sheath, a fatty layer that insulates nerve fibers, develops further. This allows signals to travel faster between neurons, improving both how memories are formed and how they are recalled. The brain, more than just shaping thought, is also sculpting itself, building the framework for remembering. These developmental stages are gentle, gradual, and deeply important. Over weeks, months, and years, the structure becomes more refined, the circuits more specialized, the patterns more familiar. Each new experience is stacked upon the last, a collection of living moments quietly woven together, and so, with the whisper of time, the brain learns to remember. Not as a machine, but as an unfolding story. Carefully formed, gently held, deeply human. In the quiet hush of a nursery, where soft blankets fold in gentle corners and lullabies drift like mist, something extraordinary is happening, something unseen yet mighty. A brain is becoming. From the moment of birth, the infant's brain is alive with promise. But unlike a machine that's ready to perform the instant it is built, the newborn mind begins its work as a gentle unfolding. Of all the parts in this growing landscape, the hippocampus, small and seahorse-shaped, holds particular importance. But at birth, it is not yet ready. The hippocampus, where memories are meant to nestle and take shape, is still delicate, still forming its intricate architecture. Each new experience, every glimpse, sound and sensation becomes a quiet brushstroke on the canvas of becoming. In these early days, much of the brain's effort is focused on survival, on breathing, feeding, feeling the comfort of a heartbeat nearby. These are the foundations, and only later do the more intricate elements like time, narrative, and self begin to find their place. That is one reason why we remember so little, if anything, from our infancy. The tools of memory were still being carved. The hippocampus was present, but not yet ready to hold entire stories. It is a mystery and a marvel how something so central to memory takes its time. And yet there's something profoundly beautiful in this. The infant brain is like a window, gradually losing its fog. With each passing week, the glass clears a little more. Our senses sharpen, our emotions deepen, and the world begins to connect. Think of it like a lens slowly coming into focus. At first, the world is a blend of light and sound, without edges or stories. But little by little, a familiar voice repeats a name, a mobile spins above with a gentle jingle, and tiny moments begin to echo inside. Not yet as memories, but as impressions, as patterns, as the soft scaffolding for what will, one day, become remembrance. Everything is taking its time, developing not on a rushed deadline, but on a schedule as natural as blooming. The hippocampus grows in quiet rhythm with the rest of the brain, waiting patiently for the world to become a story worth collecting. And so, in those first months, even though we cannot recall them ourselves, a remarkable architecture is already underway. The house of memory, not built all at once, but brick by gentle brick. In the quiet darkness beneath the folds of the brain, nestled like a hidden library deep within the temporal lobes, lies a small, curved structure known as the hippocampus. Its name, drawn from the ancient Greek word for seahorse, speaks to its gentle shape. Curled and delicate, yet profoundly vital. Though modest in size, the hippocampus serves as one of the brain's most important centers for memory. Each time we recall a familiar voice, the path to a childhood home, or the words of a favorite poem, we are visiting memories shaped and catalogued in this very place. The hippocampus is often thought of as the keeper of memory, not because it stores our experiences forever, but because it helps determine what should be remembered in the first place. Much like a skilled librarian, it helps sort and file new information, slowly transferring meaningful details into long-term memory, a process called consolidation. But the hippocampus has an unusual story of its own. At birth, this quiet structure is still immature. It exists, fully present in the brain, but not yet ready to perform its lifelong role. In fact, it will take years, well into early childhood, before the hippocampus matures enough to support the creation of certain kinds of lasting memories. This is why, for most of us, memories before the age of 3 or 4 are faint or absent altogether. It is not forgetting, but rather a quiet beginning. The machinery for lasting memory exists, but the delicate gears have not yet turned in rhythm. During those early years, the hippocampus is growing, making new connections, learning to distinguish between the fleeting and the important. It is gently tuning itself to the rhythms of experience, the meanings found in sights, sounds, sensations, and gradually, in language. The way language and memory intertwine, that is a mystery we will continue to explore. But here, in the soft light of this evening's story, we pause to honor the hippocampus, small, silent, and essential. It is our navigator of moments, a translator of lived experience into memory that may, if we are lucky, endure for years to come. In the earliest moments of life, before the first word is ever spoken, the mind is already at work. Infants see, touch, hear, taste, and feel. But their experience of the world is not yet filtered through language. In this quiet space before speech, memory emerges in a different form. Without words, there are no clear labels, no names for things, no way to describe a morning light, a mother's voice, or the softness of a favorite blanket. But still, those early impressions are not lost. Memory during this stage is built from sensation. A warm hand, a sudden noise, the sweet scent of milk. These fragments are absorbed, kept, and quietly woven into the foundations of emotional life. Language adds structure to our experiences. With it, we begin to tell ourselves stories. Stories that explain or comfort or help us remember. But the earliest memories, those formed in silence, are like scattered photographs. Momentary glimpses, vivid but unanchored. They carry mood, feeling, and present, but not storyline. A baby does not say, "I was held yesterday." But their body may remember the warmth, the rhythm of a heartbeat, the sensation of motion while cradled. This is what some call implicit memory, stored not in words, but in the tissues of perception. As we grow, language allows us to revisit and organize these moments. It gives meaning to what was once only felt. A scent becomes home. A certain lullaby becomes safety. Yet still, the oldest memories resist translation. They remain beneath speech, deeply personal and quiet. Like dreams we once had, but cannot retell. Narrative memory, the kind that tells a story from beginning to end, requires more than just the senses. It depends on the ability to understand time before, after, and then. It needs words like because and when and next. For infants, time is fluid. One moment pours gently into the next, unnumbered and unnamed. There is no now or later, only sensation, and the feelings it brings. That is why so few of us remember being very small. Not because nothing happened, but because we did not yet have the words to hold the memory in place. What remains are emotional echoes, the feeling of being loved, or startled, or soothed. They stay with us subtly, shaping how we respond to the world even as we learn to name it. And so, even before we could speak, we were already remembering, not in stories, but in sensation and feeling. Thoughts, without words. In the quiet world of a newborn, memory begins not with names or dates, but with sensations, a soft brush of skin, a lullaby drifting through the air, the warm scent of a mother's breath. These are not stored in the way we recall birthdays or the plot of a favorite story, yet they are kept in a different way. Long before we speak or even think in words, we feel. The earliest weeks of life are anchored in emotional and sensory memory, quiet traces that shape how we respond to the world. A baby cradled in gentle arms does not remember the embrace with conscious thought, but the calm it brings, the sense of safety and warmth, root themselves deep in the forming mind. This type of remembering is called implicit memory. It works without words, without images or narrative. It weaves together threads of touch, tone, rhythm, and carries them forward. When soft murmurs drift into a room, when a melody hums like a heartbeat, something quiet stirs. It may be comfort, or it may be unease, not born from what we remember, but from what once was and never fully left. You see, even though babies will not recall their first bath, or the first light filtering through the curtains. The calm ripples through them. A sense of continuity begins. A familiar rocking motion. The hush of a parent's voice. The smell of milk. These become silent guides. They shape behavior, trust, even rhythm. Consider how a child may feel soothed by a song they've heard since infancy, though they have no memory of it. That is implicit memory speaking through sensation. Such memories are not fleeting. They influence the very foundation of how we learn, attach, and feel at home in the world. Scientists have found that newborns recognize the sound of their mother's voice almost immediately after birth. Her voice, once a muffled vibration in the womb, echoes as something familiar and comforting. These earliest responses aren't made from deliberate thought, but arise from within, like a quiet bell that rings when a certain scent, sound, or rhythm returns. The senses remember even when the mind does not, and in this, we find a kind of memory that lives in presence, in feeling, in softness. Memory without story, but with meaning just the same. In the quiet corners of the mind, where no words are spoken and no pictures are seen, lives a gentle current. This is the stream of implicit memory. These are the memories that never introduce themselves. They do not knock at the door of our awareness, yet somehow they are always there, shaping the way we settle into a chair, the way our hearts respond to a familiar lullaby, or the comfort we feel in the warmth of a certain touch. Long before we learned to speak, our minds were listening, not with words but with sensation, the rhythm of a parent's footsteps, the rising and falling of their breath, the sound of water filling a tub, or the hush of rain against the window panes. Each moment experienced through a body still new was gently folded into a kind of quiet knowing. This is the foundation of implicit memory. Consider a newborn, soothed not by explanation but by cadence, the gentle sway of being rocked, the tone of a lullaby sung again and again. These are not stored like stories one tells later in life. They are etched instead into how the body feels safety, how it returns to calm. Implicit memory is not remembered, it is felt. As we grow, these early traces form the background music of our lives. Why does one room feel welcoming and another unsettling? Why does a certain rhythm help us drift off, while another stirs unease? It isn't a matter of thought or choice. It's the body recognizing a pattern, responding to something it once knew, long before it had a name. We might wonder, do we remember being held on quiet afternoons? Not consciously, but the nervous system does. It remembers the slowing of the heart rate when embraced, the warmth of skin-to-skin contact, the feeling of quiet presence when someone stayed close. These form templates for safety, for belonging, for how we learn to bond and feel at ease. We carry them without needing to recall the specifics. They influence how we react to the world, sometimes without even realizing. Implicit memory is the body's archive. No dates, no titles, just sensations committed to the silent record beneath awareness, a place where early experience continues to echo, guiding, comforting, reminding us, in small, quiet ways, of what once made us feel safe. In the earliest moments of life, long before memory takes on shape or sound, subtle waves of experience begin to ripple through the growing mind. A baby's brain is a marvel of plasticity, open, receptive, and endlessly adaptive. It's a time of quiet forming, where the world is felt more than it is understood. Within this gentle landscape, touch and scent rise as primary guides. These first sensations are not merely physical. They are messages, signals that soothe or urge awareness. A familiar voice, a soft blanket, the distinct rhythm of a heartbeat resting near, each whisper of contact, and every trace of a caregiver's scent becomes a kind of memory without words, a stored impression beneath the surface. From the moment of birth, the infant is not learning in the ways we later come to know learning. There is no lesson plan, no conscious direction. Instead, there are feelings, gentle impressions echoing through a forming brain. These beginnings carry the essence of survival, tuning the senses toward what brings comfort and away from what does not. When a baby stirs at the touch of a warm hand or quiets to the familiar tone of a parent's voice, something deeper is taking place. The body responds, the brain listens. In each of these small recognitions, the roots of trust slowly extend. Long before the child can think the word safe, they feel it. The sense of smell, too, paints a quiet portrait. Infants can detect the scent of their mother almost instantly. Drawn to her skin as instinct guides them forward, this olfactory link, formed in soft, quiet moments, becomes part of an internal compass, one that orients the baby in a world too vast to comprehend. By anchoring on warmth, nourishment, and presence, even the subtle rhythm of rocking arms contributes to the formation of calm pathways. The brain, ever adapting, carves these experiences into its structure. Associations begin, not by thought, but by feeling. Over time, repeated touches, familiar scents, and quiet tones shape a map of the world around them. Infancy is in many ways a time of emotional echo. Moments that seem forgotten are in truth folded into our bodies. They rest beneath waking thought, informing how we reach out, how we receive love, and how we feel safe. These impressions are not loud, they are not dramatic, but they are real and lasting. They linger like the traces left by a tide, soft, repeated patterns hidden beneath the sand. As we grow, the shape of our inner world changes. New thoughts arrive, words gather, questions take shape, but beneath it all, the quiet waves of our beginning remain, not remembered, but known.